of the Coalition Against School Closures, and this is the organization that's sponsoring this town hall tonight. At this time, I would like to call on another member of our coalition, Pastor Julius Sumler, the pastor of New Rocky Valley Baptist Church in Grambling, to give us an opening prayer.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Eternal and Almighty God, we thank you again, even for another day's journey. Yes. We ask, oh Lord, that you moderate this meeting with your spirit, and that everything done here tonight will be done decent and in order, and you, oh Lord, will get the glory. Yes. We thank you for the leadership of this organization and its fellowship. We ask your blessing upon us individually and collectively, that we'll continue to look to you, oh Lord, for our answers. As our servant pray in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Sumner. I believe most of us, if not all of us, have read or heard something about the Lincoln Parish School Board's recently rollout plan to consolidate the 4 elementary schools, 2 on the south side being merged and moved to the north side. The 2 schools that are closing, or proposed to close, are Cypress Spring and Ruston Elementary. Reverend Terrence Flukas, who is also a member of the coalition, and I'm proud to say also the member of the amazing Mays Chapel Church, will give us an overview. Pastor of the amazing Mays Chapel. Yeah. I'm the associate pastor, so But Reverend Flukas will come forward and give us an overview of why we're here.
Thank you, co-pastor Emerson. I'm a firm believer that when people tell you who they are, just believe them. But anyway, good evening to all of you, and we want to welcome you to the Mays Chapel CME Church here in Ruston, the site of our second town hall meeting. We held our first town hall meeting at the New Rocky Valley Baptist Church in Grambling, where Reverend Julius Sumner is the pastor, and this is our second town hall meeting before our planned school board meeting on April the 4th. First of all, we want to welcome you here and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and to get some information about what's happening with the Lincoln Parish School Board. I'm going to be serving as your facilitator for this part, and myself and Dr. Liz White, we are serving as co-chairs for the Coalition Against School Closures. And so why are we here this evening? We're here this evening because we're concerned about the spiritual, emotional, and educational welfare of our children. Mm-hmm. We're here because we are a community of stakeholders, and we want and desire what's best for our children. And we're meeting because we were not included in the discussion when the vote came up to consolidate our schools. We should have been at the table, but we were not. And so we hate that this is after the fact, but we are here today, and we're going to make it, and we want our voices to be heard, our efforts to be considered, because we are not for what's been planned to consolidate our schools here in the Ruston area. Okay, so we call this town hall meeting just to let you know about all that's happening, all the different concerns. Our panelists here to give you their different views on different aspects as to how this school consolidation plan might affect our children, our parents, and our community as a whole. And so the topic of our discussion tonight, the Lincoln Parish School Board voted 7-4, and we hate to say that the vote was along racial lines, which is sad.
Yeah.
And they voted to pass, to consolidate our 4 elementary schools, and they put on the ballot for, I believe, April the 29th, a $65 million capital improvement plan to renovate 2 schools, both north of our Interstate 20, and to close 2 schools on the south side of Interstate 20. All right? And this vote, this action from the school board took place with no input from our community, especially the communities that might be most affected by the school closures. Right. Amen? Amen? All right. What are the details of this proposed consolidation plan? These are the details. The plan calls for the consolidation of 4 elementary schools in Ruston into 2 expanded schools, K through 5. The plan calls for the expansion of 2 schools, that's Hillcrest Elementary and Glenview Elementary on the north side of town. The plan calls for 2 schools to be closed on the south side of I-20, Cypress Springs Elementary and Ruston Elementary schools. Note, students from Cypress Springs Elementary and Ruston Elementary will be bused to the 2 new schools, or the 2 expanded schools on the north side of Interstate 20. And from our understanding, the principals from those 2 schools will be appointed principals and assistant principal at one of the expanded schools from our understanding. All right? The plan calls for the Cypress Springs campus to become the new central office for the Lincoln Parish School Board. The plan also calls for the Ruston Elementary campus to become the location for the school district's new alternative school. How will this proposal be financed? An election will be held April 29th to renew a $17.75 million property tax to fund the school board's proposal. And this renewal will last for another 20 years. Nor will be considered in the process. And we're here this evening to find out what you think and where you stand about the school board's proposal. At this time, I'm going to invite Ms. Vita Emerson to come back, and she will moderate our panel discussion.
Through this town meeting, you will get an opportunity to hear an awesome panel consisting of members from the coalition and see what the issues are that will be brought to us tonight and see us. And hopefully you will join the movement to keep our schools open. At this time, I have a few students that have volunteered to provide index cards, and we have a few pens for persons that may have some questions. The questions will be left until after the panel speaks. But if you have a question, you feel free to jot it down, raise your hand, and one of the students will pick it up. So students, at this time, if we have any persons that are interested in getting a card, raise your hand and they will pass them out to you. I would like to introduce, before I start introducing our panel, Miss Yolanda White. Will you come up, please? We got a chair waiting for you.
Thank you.
We have very knowledgeable individuals that will talk to us about the Lincoln Parish School Board's plan for closing Cypress Spring Elementary and Ruston Elementary schools. Let me introduce them to you. Our first panelist is Ms. Yolanda White, a mother, a Green Clinic medical assistant, parent of 4, one of which goes to Cypress Springs. Next, we have, and they're not in my order, but I think I know everybody, Mrs. Jackie Sumler, retired classroom teacher and former regional representative of the Louisiana Association of Educators. After Ms. Sumler is Mr. Bill Smith, retired director, City of Ruston Parks and Rec, and former legislative assistant to Senator Charlie Barnes. Following him will be Mr. David Ferguson, retired principal and coach at middle school grades and high school, member of the Lincoln Parish School Board representing District 2. And Dr. Godey, retired higher education administrator, dean, and department head. Following Dr. Godey is Dr. Liz White, retired professor of English, president of Lincoln Parish Retired Educators, and currently serving as co-chair of the Coalition Against School Closures. Then we have Dr. Amy Blackham, a licensing counseling psychologist with an extensive research background in children's sleep needs. And lastly, but not least, Dr. Danielle Williams, GSU Assistant Professor in College of Education, recently elected to school board, and she represents District 1, which is my district. At this time, I will turn it over to our panelists, and because of the time restraints, we want each person to have opportunity to speak, as well as have time for members of the audience to ask questions. So I have my timer, and we are asking each panelist to limit themselves to 5 minutes. Aim for 4, no more than 5. And if you get 5, you'll see me standing up, and I might just have to come in front of you and start dancing.
What if you stand there still?
So we will start on this end with Ms. Yolanda White.
All right.
How y'all doing?
All right.
I am Yolanda White. I am a mother of 4, which my son is 10 years old at Cypress Springs in the 4th grade. I am very disappointed in the fact that I knew nothing of school closure. And the only way I found out is through passing conversations. And once I found out about it, I went out searching for ways to assist or learn more about why we're in a situation, why we're closing the schools. So I reached out to the Coalition Against School Counselors to get more clear on the situation. My son he has ADHD, and he's had it since kindergarten. I was determined to prove this teacher wrong, that he did not have it. So with that being said, I did numerous tests, and I've come to realize that with Blake having ADHD, he needs additional time learning outside of the classroom because he simply cannot get it with all of the students at the same time. So I am concerned with the fact that with the schools combining, will he have the time or the teachers to take him out to hold him in the, excuse me.
Yeah, that's it.
Will he have the time for them to really spend time with him, to get him to get the learning that he needs, the additional time? Because with his test, he struggles with taking time with taking the test. So he needs that additional time. I'm concerned with just the fact of his, just needing time to take his test.
Yeah.
And
Individual attention, he needs that.
yes, the individual attention that he needs. And one of my major concerns was his confidence levels. With him being able in special needs, and they were taking him out, and he was having, it gave him more time and concerns, and it was just wonderful to see him change.
Yeah.
I've noticed a big change in Blake with his confidence, with them taking him out of the classroom and spending more time with him and learning more. And the boy asked so many questions. And before he was shy and very reserved and wouldn't speak. Now I'm excited but still nervous at the fact that maybe he won't get that with all the kids being on one side, because you don't have time to take him out and he won't get the learning that he's so used to. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
So I need clear understanding. Thank you, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right.
As the other panelists come up, I would like for them to share with the audience what area you will be covering. So we know Ms. White was speaking from the parents' aspect. So the rest of you, if you would, please.
Good evening to you. I am Jacqueline Sumler, former teacher, former representative for school employees, a lawyer for them without law license, and didn't get their pay either. So, but I became involved in this coalition because initially the I.A. Lewis School was proposed to be shut down, and I owned property within a block, not even a block of I.A. Lewis School. So I became concerned because I thought the value of that property was going to go down. Well, somebody voted to leave it alone because you may rile up people that you don't want to rile up. So they went to Cypress Springs and Ruston Elementary, and my, have they riled up. What I have done is that I have spoken with parents in the community. Parents on the east side, parents on the south side, the west side, down Highway 80, the other Highway 80, down Beacon Light Road, and I've also talked with the children, because that's where my focus is. In the grocery store, a little Caucasian boy came and just stood and stared at me. And I said, hello. He says, do I know you? And I says, no, I don't. Yes, I do. And he pulled on his pawpaws pants. He said, is that the lady that was on TV? And so his grandfather started talking with me. Before I knew it, in the grocery store, we were holding up the checkout lines. People were gathering around listening. And so I shared with them that it is now time for you to voice a concern that you may have, and you may not have one, but there are others around you who may. And so children have shared with me some interesting things, and I've asked their parents, is it okay for your child to talk to me or your grandchild? Sure. So one little one said to me, I asked him, I said, what time do you ride the bus to school? He says, well, I used to. I said, why don't you anymore? He says, because I couldn't get up and stay awake. When I go to school, I fall asleep. And my teacher told my mother that I'm sleeping in class. And so I said, well, what time were you getting up when you rode the bus? He said, I got up at 5:15. I said, well, you're not old enough to know what time 5:15 is, are you? He says, I know it because my mama says, 5:15, get up. 5:15 is get up so you can get to the bus. Well, after the mother found out that her child was sleeping in class and not able to do his classwork because of the lack of sleep, she decided that she would make a sacrifice and take him to school herself. But all parents are not capable of doing it. And so I also found out, which was really interesting to me, that many of our children, particularly the black children, are going to school 3 days a week. And there's a reason why. Because they're sleeping, they're tired, they can't get up. So there is something that we, and these schools are still close to them. So what do you think is going to happen if those schools are further away? And the teachers are, believe it, they are concerned that the children are sleeping in their classrooms. One of our meetings, I met a teacher here who is not here tonight, but she came and I talked with her, and she said, I'm here because the kids are sleeping in my classroom. And the little one one of the little ones I talked with, he says, yeah, he said, after breakfast, I take a nap. He says, and I wake up, and I eat lunch, and then I take another nap. And I said, well, when do you learn? Whenever I wake up. So that's happening with our little ones. And that's where my focus is on the children. I have asked parents if they will come and participate. I see 2 or 3 of them that I've asked who are here tonight. And I am continuing to go through the community, and I tell them, let your vote be your voice.
That's right.
You make a decision as to how you want to address this after you found out all of the information and how it affects you. Did I go with my 5 minutes?
You got 10 seconds.
Just let you talk to you.
Do I get extra time with my problem?
10 seconds. You got my 10 seconds.
Gotcha. Let me clear up one thing before I try and get started. I don't know how they come up with Mays Chapel. This is the community church. We've been meeting here since I was a boy. When we can't go anywhere else, we can come to the community church. There again, we got a good crowd here tonight. I'm supposed to try and talk about race. You know, James Ray Potts was the first to desegregate the institution right across 80. Didn't graduate, but he went there. So he was. James Bradford's sister Bertha was the second, and she graduated. But guess what? His daddy went to jail behind part of that. See, they didn't want her or anything that looked like me across that street. You all don't remember because you forget so quick. You couldn't even walk across the campus. We had to go around to get to North End. My, how things have changed. They tried once inviting us to the table, found out that few of us knew a little bit about what we were talking about. So it didn't work. We filed a suit. I was actually supposed to have been the one to sign that suit. And when I went upstairs to get the pen, John Teller signed it. Fine. It wasn't about who, it was about what. And they were able to get from under that suit. Probably need to go back again, but they are from under it right now. And now they've started to ignore us or not pay any attention to us. And I have a real concern. We have this one and that one who's on the school board. They've been here every time we met, regardless of where we met.
All right.
We've got one other. She's been to one meeting. But we got 2 that hadn't been to a meeting. How are they going to explain to me what is going on and what I should vote for, and they can't come over here and tell me? But they live over here. We have a serious problem with understanding sometimes what it is we're supposed to do. Not only grab that check, but we are supposed to keep the community informed in terms of what is going on. alert us when there are things that you don't go along with. Now, all of you look fairly intelligent to me, but I think if you were in this room tonight and we called for a vote, all the black folk voted one way, all the white folk voted another way. We got a problem. We've got a problem, and it's serious. And it appears that nobody connected with the Lincoln Parish School Board want to accept the fact that we've got a problem. Now, the night they spent the 5 minutes spending that $65 million, they voted 7-4. Nobody said a word then, and nobody's saying a word now. Not only did they do that, this done in like January, February, they jumped up and called the election for April. I guess they thought we were like Rip Van Winkle. When he went up into the mountains, we had a king. He fell asleep and come down, we have a president. We're not gonna sleep through this vote. This is a fair warning. We are not sleeping through this vote. See, you all didn't chase politics like I did all your life. I remember when people used to pull guns and knives on you to try to keep you from around the polls. I told them, I'm not going to die but once. I didn't come here to stay. I know that I'm leaving. A lady told me once, Bill Smith, you're going to find yourself floating in Mississippi with bricks tied around your leg. I told her, fine. I might as well die kicking yoke as to dying in the river. And I mean every word of it. You know, I don't mind going. I've lived a lot longer than I know I should have. But somebody's been praying a long time and been praying hard to get me through some of this. Because I'm going to tell you, people will make you cut up. It's an insult for people around that table and the superintendent to think that we just going to sit still and let them have $65 million to do with what they please. You see, once we give them the money, there ain't nothing we can do about it. You know, they can go on and renovate Glenview for a couple of years and then go out on the other side of where they're building the hospital and build that new Taj Mahal. You know, we still sitting over here mumbling and grumbling. But guess what? See, when white people get together, they call it a convention. But when we get together, they call it a ride. Tell them the ride is coming. April the 29th. Let's come on through. See that when you get old?
When I turned 70, I became a true. I balled more now than I ever had. One thing I want to say is, I've been principal of every grade except 1, 2, and 3. And most of the schools I went to, the atmosphere of the place was pathetic, and kids will not learn if that atmosphere is not good. Miss White, that's what the atmosphere takes care of, your baby. And I'm going to tell you, I had a stickler for special ed now.
Me too.
I made sure they reached to the top.
Me too.
But I look at it as being a safety problem with all them kids at 600, 700, 800 in one spot. That means they got triple security. Many of you saw what happened in Nashville.
Yeah.
Who said it won't happen now?
That's right.
But at these smaller schools, in Lewis Hillcrest, they can cover it pretty good.
That's right.
Then you run into discipline problems. Because if that atmosphere is not right, they don't want to come to school.
Right.
And right now, they have a discipline problem now. I think somebody asked at one board meeting, why do kids walk in the street? The atmosphere is pathetic. They don't care. They don't show the kids they care. And when you put them all together like that, and that principal should be able to quote every kid's name. I knew all of them. I had 400, 500 of them. I greeted them every day. Just know they were welcome to come there. Truancy becomes a problem when they don't feel welcome. And that's going to be a problem. It's going to trouble. But my whole thing is, I've asked him more than once, and you've seen it in the paper. They have no statistics to say this junk they're going to do going to work. They don't have no criteria they follow. They did no study to give the citizens of Lincoln Parish something to read to see it's going to work.
Yeah.
And right now, all I see is we all suffering right now with these with all these groceries. We in a recession. And we can't even buy an egg when the egg used to be, what, 50 cents a dozen? Water back in the day, 90 cents. And it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And me personally, I can't see us punishing these citizens in Lincoln Parish. Because I don't see no use for the money. Now, if he want to do something and be smart, he'll take them school closures off the ballot and leave Ruston High. I have no problem with kids. I want kids to have everything they deserve.
Yeah.
And if they want that, then do that. Don't destroy a school system. And I wanted to get into the scores at schools, but Miss Williams is going to talk about that. And they not good either. So how you going to take 700 failing kids and put them in one spot? And see, that's the problem with it. But I say this, whatever old shooter doing, they better get down there and find out. That's what they need to do, and I've told him before. You have no plan, you have nothing to give to the general public except a wish. You can't compare apples to pears, and I done told him that. But kids was my business for 37 years. And I'm going to tell you, you better not bother one. And right now on the board, you better not mess with a teacher. She better be true to blue guilty, because if they trying to question her, I'm coming at them. I was over the personnel committee. Well, you people, you know we don't hire, we don't fire. So I told them that's useless. So I wrote them a note, told them don't put me on nothing. These committees worthless as titties on the blowhole. Don't put me on nothing. So then I got to it, and he created a diversity committee. And that's what we do. Any kid, don't matter who, color, what. If he's discriminated against, we coming for you. Me and Danielle, and we don't play easy with them either. We had 3 fired. One hit an autistic kid. She went to jail. One told one, you look like a monkey. She was fired in 3 hours. Because I tell you, they come to school to learn and not be harassed. But as far as truancy, like I said, it's gonna grow. Because kids don't feel like they're welcome, then they're not coming. You've been through that as adults. You go in a place, a restaurant, and they treat you bad, you ain't going back. And so kids are even more sensitive.
Yeah.
And once they know you love them, and you care about them, and you go back, take that back and swing it for them, they'll shine for you. And every school I've been to, first thing I had to do was get the school climate right in order to get the kids to perform. And that not only just kids, the teachers too. And I questioned him about what is his plan to, as far as the new schools, as far as classrooms. How many kids gonna be in there? What's gonna be there? Look, I could talk all night. I'm at a loss for words, but all I can tell you is, vote Monday.
Okay, so first I want to say that I'm honored to serve the community that raised me. I'm a product of this community, and on paper, I'm here to sound the alarm that we have a problem in this school system. And my topic is academics. Mr. Ferguson and I met with the superintendent shortly after that last split board meeting, just to try to fill him out and just talk about our concerns. I voted no, and the reason why I voted no because there's no plan. There's absolutely no plan related to student achievement. I mentioned last week there were 2 areas that I campaigned on. That was test scores and transparency. And we have a problem. We have a problem. And so one of the things that I want to mention is that when it comes to, I put a lot of time into studying the data at the State Department, and you all are privy to it as well. All you have to go is Louisiana Department of Education website, and they have all the student test scores as far as the breakdown, demographics, socioeconomic status, and all of that. And our elementary scores are in trouble. They're currently in trouble right now. We have several areas that they are in trouble. And so when I talk about like students with disability, when you talk about students from the African American student, we have a growing population of Hispanic students in this community that we're not even addressing their needs. No one's even talking about it. And so one of the things I mentioned last week in our meeting is, and I want you all, when you get a chance, to Google Blue Ribbon. You know, when our school system and our superintendent get in the media and on the news, he talks about, you know, this is a good school system. Okay, good, that's very subjective, okay? We don't have one Blue Ribbon campus in Lincoln Parish. In fact, we've only had one in the entire existence of Lincoln Parish school system, and that was over at Emma J. Brown. We never had a Blue Ribbon campus. And so when you arrive as a Blue Ribbon, that's the highest honor that you can receive from the feds. That means the Hispanic students are scoring well. That means the African American students are scoring well. Students with disability, and even students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, they're even scoring well. So I'm here to explain and just sound the alarm that we do have a problem. And I want to also, my heart goes out to Ms. Yolanda, because I'm a former special education assistant, special education director in Texas. And that's my first love, working with students with disability. So I understand where she's coming from. We have cookie-cutter type of curriculums, and we're teaching students as far as whole group, but we're not individualizing our learning. So just imagine grouping all of the students together in one large school without a plan. One of the things that when we met with the superintendent, and I want to explain this to, you know, just to let it out there, but as a school board member, we only allowed to serve 3 consecutive terms. That's it. And so what happens is there's someone that's going to come behind me. And I explained to the superintendent that I'm doing a disservice. Right now, if I do not have a plan, a short-range plan, a long-range plan, so when that person comes after me, they know exactly where we are and where we're headed. Okay? And so feel free to reach out to me, and if you have any questions related to the schools, the test scores, or just any type of concern. Thank you.
There's no way to do this gracefully.
There you go.
There you go.
I'd like to follow up on Dr. Williams' comments, because ultimately, the first and primary goal for this whole process is academic success for every student in Lincoln Parish. That is the North Star. That is the goal of everything and anything that we would do related to our public education. So when we talk about raising $65 million to consolidate elementary schools, the first thing I think is, so what is the academic outcome that we're seeking that will drive this plan? And as Dr. Williams said, so far we have not seen a plan. So what we have is a $65 million tail wagging a dog. So what we need to refocus on is that, one, Lincoln Parish as a whole in educating our students, we have a problem. And the goal should be, how do we get our students at the academic performance level that we desire for them to have? And we know that they can get there. What are the steps that we're going to take? What are we going to do in terms of academics that will get them there? Then we cost that out in terms of what it would take, in terms of the budget, to drive the program that will make it happen. The program has to be more than putting bunches of students in a single place. What does that look like in terms of classroom size? What does that look like in terms of student-teacher ratio? What does it look like in terms of curriculum? It's good to have a general curriculum, but we have to also acknowledge that students, everybody learns a little bit differently. So one size does not fit all. And I started my life a long, long time ago when dinosaurs roamed before the earth cooled, teaching K-12. And one of the first things I learned was that no matter how many students I had in my classroom and no matter how well my lesson plans were written, I had to make sure that every student in that class understood the content and how to work with it. So even though I had a general plan, I know that Jimmy, who taps on his pencil and taps his foot, learned rhythm is very good for him, and he can learn things if he can have a way to put rhythm to it. I've got another student over here who can't necessarily grab it if he hears it, but if he can see it and draw it and touch it, he's got it. So if we're going to cram all these students together in two spaces, what are those spaces going to look like? What are the talents and skills and that the teachers that we're going to put with those students, what are they bringing to the table? And we need to be talking about that before we talk about how we consolidate these schools. Lincoln Parish has just come out from under a federal court order. I lived through a part of that as the senior administrator at one of the universities here, and we were involved in that process. One of the things the board has to come to understand is unitary status is not permanent.
That's right.
All right? And one of the things we have to be really aware of is that if Lincoln Parish really wants to signal that they're committed to being a unitary system, then that means acknowledge all of the stakeholders in the system and bring us to the table on the front end. We actually have ideas that we could provide that could help them develop a plan. Now, ultimately, they may still end up having to consolidate schools, but everybody will have been at the table with an idea on how to make it work. But just doing it and throwing money at it and throwing bricks at it will not get it done. We've got to acknowledge that students learn differently. Students need to, that school is their community. Children identify with the schools to which they go every day. I have 4 great-grandsons. Those of you who know me, they know they've been my shadows for the last 16 years. And they have come up through Lincoln Parish schools. And I can tell you, I have been out there for my kindergartner to catch a 6:15 bus to go to a school that is 2 blocks from his house. That is no lie. The other alternative is that we do car line. And if you want to see something really turn into chaos, my great-grands went to Hillcrest. And I can tell you, the teachers and the administration, they have car line down to a science. Cypress Spring teachers, they got car line down to a science. But it's the neighborhoods you got to drive through before you get onto the school grounds that are the problem. These are small, close-built communities with small cul-de-sacs and small streets. It's going to be a nightmare.
Yep.
We've got this, but we can only have it if we do it together. Everybody needs to be at the table, and everybody needs to be valued.
That's right.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Liz White, retired English professor, president, Lincoln Parish Retired Educators, and one of the co-chairs of the Coalition Against School Closures. And I will be speaking briefly to you on the renewal of the 17.75 property tax that will come before the voters on April 29. Let me start with this. No one wants more taxes, period. Just this past Saturday, City of Ruston voters approved all 5 alcohol propositions that were on the ballot. They weren't voting to get a new tax. They were voting to get 100 proof liquor. But that means anyone who buys the booze will pay both local tax, a local tax rate, in addition to a state tax rate. Then comes April 29. There's another tax on the ballot. It's the renewal of a 17.75 meal property tax for the Ruston School District. If it passes, all property owners will be strapped with that tax for the next 20 years. Now that's a long time. Just suppose within that period, the police jury decides it needs additional tax monies for a parish-wide project. Or suppose within that period, the city of Ruston will need more money for a project. Or the sheriff department will need more money. Imagine how much additional taxes we'll be paying within the next 20 years. The Lincoln Parish School Board expects this property tax will generate the $65 million needed to pay for the closing of 2 elementary schools, in addition to expanding and renovating 2 other elementary schools. The irony about this plan looks really crazy to me. It pictures the 2 elementary schools north of the interstate in the white affluent neighborhood as big, bright, shining stars at the expense of closing the schools south of the interstate in predominantly black neighborhoods. In other words, it tells black taxpayers to pay on a tax for 20 years to have schools closed in their neighborhood.
Yep.
My mother would say something like, "You're cutting off your noses to spite your face." What are other drawbacks of this property tax? If you're black, you run the risk that has been a practice for decades. The risk of inflated tax assessments. The risk of white tax assessors intentionally overvaluing the property of black residents. Many tax assessors for decades have routinely saddled black and minority residents with property tax bills that are too high given the value of their homes. Now, I'm not suggesting that this happens in small town Ruston, but I do know it happens in large cities. If this sounds like I'm concerned only about black taxpayers, let me paraphrase a familiar Bible scripture which teaches us that anyone who does not care for or look out for his own is worse than an infidel. I believe it's our moral duty to look out for those with whom we live, those in our community, in our neighborhoods, especially those who are marginalized and unable to look out for themselves, including our parents and our children. The school board proposes to raise $65 million for this enormous school closing, school expansion project by taxing real estate. This places a heavier tax burden on the backs of all property owners in the Ruston School District. Did the Lincoln Parish School Board do a feasibility study or a cost analysis to determine whether the 17.75 millage rate will actually cover or overcover what it is expected to cover? I don't think so. Well, what about residents who lease properties rather than become a homeowner? This tax includes you too, indirectly. While landlords do charge rent to cover their expenses, you won't have to pay your own ad valorem tax. That's the burden of your landlord. But guess what? This tax is already built into your rent. And when the landlord tax bill increases, your lease bill at the end of the contract also increases. I see my moderator standing. Let me make my final point. The value of property is impacted by dollars spent on schools in a given district. Just as schools in a neighborhood, good schools in a neighborhood, increases home values. When schools close in the neighborhood, home values decrease accordingly. If the vote passes on April 29, it will extend for another 20 years, this tax. If it fails, the tax will come off the books and the school closures, school expansion project will not take place. Thank you.
I'm going to go around this way. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is Amy Blackham. I am a psychologist. I've lived in Ruston for about 23 years. We were asked to kind of explain why we're here, and I would like to thank you all, and I'd let you know I'm honored to be your diversity member on your panel tonight. Race is one of the reasons why I'm here. I've raised 2 black children in this small town, and I am well aware that me being on this panel, whether I'm an expert in anything, just the fact that I'm white lends credibility, and I hate that. And I'm here to be an ally and to do what I can because I believe that this part of this is racial. Yeah. All right, so I was instructed, or I volunteered, I should say, to talk about sleep behavior in children. And so as I was kind of preparing for this, it kind of turned into the role that busing plays and long rides on the bus. And so I'm going to go through a list of factual statements, and I can provide the references on request. I have all of the citations written down, but these are just some of the most important things that I came up with. So we know that if children are made to get up earlier to catch a bus, parents can usually put the children to bed earlier. So overall, there's not a large loss of sleep time. But the time on the bus, if it's over 30 minutes, is considered empty time.
So empty time keeps students from engaging in other activities, things like homework or extracurricular sports and clubs, relaxation, free play, even engaging in family activities. If you're on the bus, you're not doing any of these things. As travel time on buses increases, the entire family has to adjust, resulting in a reduction in all of those activities for the family at large, not just that one student. As travel time on buses increases, parents and students are less satisfied with the education system overall. They are less attentive at school, and they apply less effort to homework. So this is when we were talking, we mentioned falling asleep in the classroom. And so trust me when I tell you that I can get into the nitty-gritty about what happens to the human brain when you have disrupted sleep and you're not getting the memory consolidation and the emotional processing time and the limitations on your subsequent cognitive abilities. I wrote my dissertation on sleep in children. So if anybody wants me to elaborate on that, I'm happy to do so. The point is that time on the bus is not time doing other healthy pro-social activities. And then I came across some interesting data on how bigger is not better for schools, particularly rural Black schools. So some of this information is that, and you've heard it here from other presenters, that truancy rates, classroom disruptions, vandalism, theft, substance abuse, and gang participation are lower in small rural schools. Smaller schools allow more children to participate in extracurricular team activities. Smaller neighborhood schools allow students to maintain a connection to their neighbors and their neighborhoods, contributing to lower rates of vandalism and theft. And some kids feel anonymous in larger schools, feel lost and left out. These aren't the problem kids or the really good kids, they're just the average kids that fall through the cracks because they don't have a sense of community with their school. It's just too big. And finally, students from less affluent communities, which we can take to mean lower socioeconomic status or communities of color, students from less affluent communities have better academic achievement in smaller schools. So, in summary, the school bus stuff, the smaller school stuff, as a psychologist, these are the big things that stood out to me, the things that I would be concerned with if any of these kids were my patients. And at the very least, and it sounds like this should have been done beforehand, but with all these kids already spending this much time on buses, it's only going to get worse. And I'm just shocked that there was no time study done to estimate how much longer kids were going to be on buses. So that's all I got. And thank you. And I have a little handout here if anybody wants to take a copy or take a picture of it if there's not enough to go around.
Ms. B, I got one thing to say. Last night, Miss Williams and myself attended Lincoln Prep school board meeting, and he has plenty of room. And I told him, keep them trailers, we might need them. So he's gonna put pre-K through 1 there, and I know he's gonna have room. That eliminates him going to the new shiny school, so that means we have more space for high school kids. And we don't wanna do that, but we gonna do whatever we can to make our kids prosperous and learn. And we gonna do it. So I can't remember when you were 70, you get kind of short on memory. What day did he say he had open enrollment?
I think it started in March 23rd.
It started March 23rd, so if you ready, check him out. Because our superintendent couldn't understand. He asked me, he said, you think Lincoln Prep can get these kids a better education? Yes, Lincoln Prep can, because Lincoln Prep has role models. And black kids need role models. And they treat it fair, you know. I went to Grambling High. We was top in the state, I can tell you. And we gonna get it back to where it's top.
Mr. Ferguson, while Mr. Ferguson is finishing, if anyone has a
That's
card
right.
with
It's
questions, raise your hand so they can be collected, please.
So, all I'm saying is, there's a way out.
That's right. You all get collecting the cards. I think that we need not to forget, when the superintendent spoke with us, he stated that school consolidation is a result of them wanting to move the school board office. That's the number one issue for school consolidation. They want to move it off of the east side of town. They have had 3 lockdowns, and I said to him, sir, but nobody was shooting at you. And there is plenty of property down on 167, Ruston Country Club, that's up for sale. You got 40 acres. Put your school board office there and leave the schools as they are. He did not respond to me. That's all I wanted to share with you, but that's where the school closure is coming from, because they want to move the school board office from the east side of town.
Okay, thank you. This was not on the script, so I hope the co-chairs won't kill me for this one. But as I was listening to the panelists talk, and I appreciate what everybody said, but I was just reminded of how we got our superintendent. And if most of you remember, at the time, there was a young, black, educated man that ran for superintendent against our person that came from Ruston High, and as a walk-in, supposedly a walk-in, and the vote was tied. They voted 3 times. Couldn't break the tie. They decided they needed to have another day, and 2 days later we came back for the vote. They had let teachers out early to try to fill up the room so that black community couldn't even get in there. And they had a private meeting, threatened the one white school board member that voted with the blacks, threatened her children, and threatened her business, so she changed her vote. This is the racism that we deal with in Lincoln Parish. So if I had the opportunity to say, my pastor shut me down before, but if I had the opportunity, I would tell Superintendent Durr, he's only there because, and I wouldn't want a job that somebody had to threaten another person to change their vote for me to get it. If I couldn't get it on my own merit, I wouldn't want it. Right. So he didn't get it on his own merit, and it's obvious he doesn't know what to do now that he's there. But I'm through. I'm off my soapbox.
You know, my class desegregated Ruston High School with 2 young girls and 1 young boy. And it was amazing. After graduation, I went to Grambling a while, and I got to Vietnam. And it wasn't too long, my mother sent me a letter saying that they were closing Lincoln High School down. I really don't believe it would have closed had I been in Ruston. You know, and I think back on 69. We just desegregate Ruston High School in 67. We hadn't even really desegregated when I went to Vietnam. Flying over to Vietnam, everybody is just like this. They all buddies. Oh, but on that trip back, when you land at Fort Lewis, Washington, Travis Air Force Base, California, one group goes this way and one group goes that way. And it's been that way in these great United States ever since. Oh, we pretend, we play a good game as if it's all right. It's not all right. People are not happy. We've been set back 50 years already, just with the thought of the school board wanting to do something like this. And if I had my way, I would do like the people in New Orleans. I would start some recall petitions. And I'd start with some of those people that don't show up for the meeting. You know, and let's get them out of the way first. And then let's put some of these people in those places. Because they don't appreciate being able to stand up and voice the sentiment of so many people. You know, people wonder all the time why we go crazy when it comes to reapportionment. Because they zigzag the line to where it's convenient for some people to get a vote. Yes, all of it's gerrymandered. That's what it is. They do all of the lines that way. My phone jumped off the hook Saturday morning. People calling me about, well, why is the alcohol tax on the ballot in Grambling? And that's a Ruston tax. I said, because if you look at Cypress Spring, not Cypress Spring, what is the Bonnet Springs Road? If you know where Franklin is, they got some apartments right there. 20 people live inside the city limits. So therefore, they had to vote at Grambling. And we just need to keep up with what's going on. And I think what we've been trying to move forward in doing is a pretty good effort in letting people know that we are here to stay.
Okay, thank you. I have a few questions for the panel. And this one starts with what Brother Bill was saying. Why are no other school board members present in these meetings?
That'd be a good question for you to call and ask them. And they know about it because they got called and asked.
Or come to the board meeting and ask them.
Yeah.
And we want all of you to be there.
Amen.
Because, you know, I always found out when you are great in numbers,
Things happen.
you can bring attention to people.
The first Tuesday of every month, please.
Yep.
Please attend.
But I always explain to people, I don't care how you vote. 7 gonna be 5 7 days a week. If you want to go the other, 4 beat 7 if you go the opposite way. And it's amazing how before then we didn't have all that. We voted together as a school board.
Right.
Now it is pathetic. And if you come, you'll hear me tell them about it. But, you know, I've never seen that long as I've worked.
Let me say this, I was at the school board meeting when they voted on February 7th, and I spoke to the board because I could see that night, you all are divided. That was strange to me. You were getting ready to do a project of this magnitude, and even you are not together. I said that to them, but when they came down to the vote, it was evident. 7 whites voted for the proposal. The 4 blacks that were left in the room voted against. Well, at least I thought it was commendable that our black board members were together. They stuck together. And they had pointed out, they had raised questions that indicated this is not a fair plan that you're coming up with.
That's right.
And I could see that night. So I commend our black school board members for giving us the direction that we're headed in now. That's, I think, is the very source of the very beginning of this coalition against school closures. What our board members did in unison that night. They stood together, so we have to support them and stand together.
Let me clear one thing up before we get out of here this night. It sounds like we are just after killing that tax. What we really want is for them next week to vote to table this thing.
That's right.
And then we come together and work out a plan that most of the people can accept. I think if we talk, there's a good chance we can work some things out. We don't care that it stays on the machine and the ballot for the 29th. Send that letter to the Secretary of State's office and just get the election canceled itself. And then we would be more than satisfied and ready to come to the table. And I promise you, we will come to that table with open minds and a heart ready to receive some good news. Thank you.
And see, we were never involved in this decision. When I heard of it, they brought it up that night. Next time, our president on TV, hell, he knew more than everybody. We didn't know anything. And I told them suckers when they came, I said, look, y'all need to table this till we get an understanding. They ignored me. But it's one thing. If you read the minutes of the school board, never is nothing that's said from either one of us be in that paper. Read it. Because I give them hell every time we meet. Because I don't agree with nothing they do. Now, many of you have read the paper and you see my opinion. And I'm going to tell you, the next one put it in my mouth, I'm going to blow the roof off of it. Because somebody going to do something. But we were left out the picture.
And
I didn't like it. Go ahead, baby.
One of the things I want to mention is we asked, when Mr. Ferguson and I met with the superintendent the next day after it was a split vote, we asked him, we said, what happens if the tax fails? What happens? He said, I'll just go for it next year. That's just the explanation. No plan, no strategized focus groups, anything. I'll just go for it again next year. And that was his explanation.
And if you want to be frank to the point, he's turned the system into as racist as it could be.
Okay.
Nobody's happy on no side. And everybody ought to see it.
I got a couple of more questions, and Carl over there is holding his hand. And I'm going to do this one time, just because.
Just because.
And that's it, because we're about to run out of time.
Okay.
I can go down. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to stand here and speak. Thank you very much. I'm from Union Parish, Farmerville. Coach Ferguson now knows me, knows my family, and he knows Union Parish people. So I've now lived in Lincoln Parish and have been for almost 20 years now. But what I'd like to tell you tonight is I commend you for what you're doing. Do not quit, because it's easy to quit. And if it was easy, anybody could do it. So keep fighting. I also want to tell you, you're not the only one fighting the fight, because we're doing the same thing right now in Union Parish.
Yep, that one elementary.
Our situation on April 29th, Brother Bill, is that they're wanting, or the school board is wanting to renew a tax, 15 meals, which we need. But we've decided, back in November, we voted no. And we're going to vote no again on the 29th. Now, we need the tax. What we don't need is the same old we've been getting. Here's what we've been getting. Union Parish Elementary School, F. That's right. Union Parish High School is a C, but when you peel the onion back and look at those modules or elements that they grade you by,
That's right.
the academic piece is an F.
That's right.
You school teachers, your old school teachers, you know I used to give the students 2 points for getting your name on that too.
That's right.
That's what I call that. Those points that we get for the extra stuff for putting our name right on the paper, that brought us up to a C.
That's right.
So we're fighting the same thing. Initially, that was no plan. I mean, a lot of this stuff I'm hearing, I'm like, boy, it's like a repeat. You know, Groundhog Day. So we have pushed them on that, and I give them credit. They had been in contact with a consulting firm, came in and developed a plan. But here's what, and I don't know if they, meaning school board and superintendent, don't know any better, or they think we don't know any better. Tell me someone, what kind of plan do you have and you have no milestones. You don't talk about when you're gonna have this much done.
Right.
I understand on long-range plan, there are steps, there are things that need to be done.
That's right.
And nobody talks about that. And when you talk to them about it, they look at you like, why is he talking to me about that? So I'm trying to understand, do they think we're stupid? Or they just don't know, or they stupid? So you're not alone, we're all fighting. Let's pray for each other, because we don't need to help each other.
I have a few questions before we dismiss, and we'll be out of here by 7:30. If the board was able to keep one of the expanded sites on the south side of town, would the coalition against school closure be okay with the plan?
No.
Or do you disagree with consolidating the schools regardless?
Disagree with the way they went about all of it. That's what we disagree with. That, you know, you want my dollar, but you don't want my voice.
Yep, that's true.
You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. You can hand a 3-year-old an Xbox. You can hand them a phone. You can hand them a football. They score right off the bat. But those seniors we have can't read their name in boxcar letters as that train moves east and west. And that's amazing to me. How is it they can pick up coaches' plays and know where that 2-hole is versus that 3-hole? You know, and they got all of that right here. But you ask them how many eggs in a dozen, they look up.
Let me say this in reference to that question. I think it kind of follows that if they were to consider investing in Cypress Springs and having a lower elementary school north of the interstate, one lower elementary school north of the interstate, and one upper elementary school, which would be Cypress Springs, south of the interstate. That, to me, speaks to trying to hear us and trying to work together. It sounds like a compromise, and I don't think it would be a bad idea. And I've been with this coalition from the start, and I've heard many views, and I think that would be a way of trying to work with the both sides of the issue.
And
We have a hand back here who wants to say something, please.
I know, Okay, excuse me, I broke the rule a minute ago, so I'm going to let Mr. Washington speak, but it was all supposed to be me moderating and questions coming rather than from the audience. But I did break the rule, so Mr. Washington, you have the floor.
I was just going to say, somebody raised on the south side, built on the north side, to close, Glenview is too big of a school for where it is now. You have people standing in line, pick up kids for 2 hours, 3 hours every day. You go by Glenview at 1 o'clock, there's a line of cars already to pick up kids and get out of school at 3 o'clock. That school right now is too big for the neighborhood. I live 2 streets over from it. It's too big. The kids gonna be down in my neighborhood. It is wrong. Ruston cannot handle 2 schools. It don't matter what side of town they put it on, no matter what. We need 4. What they need to build is another. We need 5. We don't need to be going down to school. We need to be adding too much. Because Ruston is growing. And it is going to cause a police problem, a parking problem, and a housing problem if they do that right there. Not even getting past in the classroom. If you live in those neighborhoods and do all that other stuff, it's going to cause problems. And one of the problems that we have in this thing is we got bad police. So the bad police is causing a bad school.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I have 2 more questions. Go on.
No, I was just going to address that question. The bottom line is everything is centered around student achievement. That's what the focus is. And so when you have those elementaries right now who are in trouble, they're in trouble. What happens is it resets the accountability. Okay? And so the students, they get a new school code, new school name, you consolidate, and it shows in the Louisiana Department of Education that the superintendent was supposed to notify the LDOE and talk to them about a plan, especially when you deal with the subgroups of the test scores. So when you have 19% of our African American students, grades 3 through 8, who are we are only preparing 19%, y'all. That's it. Only 19% grades 3 through 8 are on track for college. That's sad.
Yep.
That's pathetic. So what about that other 80-something%? What about those students? And I looked at, when I worked in Texas, our superintendent used to say all the time, when those students are failing tests, it's names behind those percentages. What about those 80-some% of names? What are we doing to prepare them? Okay.
Can I just answer that real quick? I appreciate that y'all are concerned about the process and about not being involved, but after my brief amount of research that I did for this presentation, I would be against it either way, if it were one or the other. Based on the limited, journal articles that I read today, small rural schools are important, and I think, like the gentleman said, we need more small neighborhood schools. The data supports that, especially for low SES kids.
All right quick. What benefits do the blacks have with both schools being closed?
None.
There's no benefits. It's going to cause additional problems for our children and their learning. Remember, they're asleep already. So if they have to get up earlier to travel further, that means they're gonna sleep till lunch, and then after lunch, they go home.
One of the things I had a problem with it, we have all these underachieving elementary schools, right? Why would you take all them and put them at that 2 schools and the principal and put her in there? You still gonna fail. If you take one principal from one of the schools closed, you got double failure.
That's right.
We gotta have something gonna come in there and really do something different. Because it's not working right now.
Okay, this is the last question. Who is allowed to vote in April? Do you have to be in Ruston city limits, or is it everyone in Lincoln Parish?
That's inside and out.
That isn't in one of other communities, such as Dubois, Salisbury, Shreveport, Grambling, etc.
It is the Ruston School District.
Right.
It's not City Ward 1.
Nope.
Parish Ward 1. It is the Ruston School District, which includes Grambling.
Yes.
And it goes up like the side, like this. There's a side to it that brings people into the situation of voting. And I guess if we had a map, I could name those side streets that go up the side to, those are the ones that would be voting.
R.W.E. Jones Drive.
You get it confused. We get it confused a lot of times because when they want to show test scores or 2 or 3 other things, it's always Ruston schools.
Yep.
But when they need that money from the federal government, they are out counting low-income homes. And that's the only way they're going to get it, it's based on low income. So we get used every way but loose.
And Ms. Vita, District 2 is a part of the Byrd District. Because when they recalculated, we don't have a school in Grambling, so we were given Simsboro. And I have no problem with Simsboro. They're not closing nothing, they're not moving nothing. But they gonna do athletics for kids, roofs. That old school old as dirt. And they need the money to do it. So if you in that district with me, let them go. Don't bother them.
Yeah,
they deserve what they gonna get.
Yeah, that's a standalone school district.
Okay. I want to thank our panelists, thank our audience for your patience.
There's a meeting tomorrow that Ricky Durrett will be at, in case you didn't know.
Is that Hillcrest?
Next
week, yeah.
Next week, the Hillcrest.
Meeting, Hillcrest Elementary.
Yeah, that's the one he's
I
gonna
would
be
like
at.
to announce those.
We're
too.
gonna be like Michael Jackson. We'll be
Okay,
there.
before I make the announcements, I also want to thank our young people that helped with passing out the cards and pens and collecting for us. I do have a couple of announcements. Hillcrest meeting with Richard Durr being there will be held April the 3rd. That's next Monday. And the school board meeting will be held that Tuesday, April the 4th. And we want to have that place so filled.
Please.
That there won't even be
Yes.
standing room.
Bring.
So I encourage everybody and tell your friends, neighbors, church folk to come out and let's be represented so they know that we are serious.
What
We're
time
not
is
sleeping.
the meeting at Hillcrest?
The meeting at Hillcrest is at 6 p.m.
Yeah,
at the school board.
let's flip a coin
Is it
now.
5:30? I'm sorry.
5:30. Rick Godley says 5:30. He got a book.
Okay, it's 5:30.
Can't read it, but he got one.
All right. My next thing, and this is my passion, and I wore my T-shirt.
Get your watch out, Bill.
But hey, I won't talk that long. But what I'm saying is, talk is easy.
Right.
But until we actually go to the polls and vote, all this talking we're doing is phenomenal.
That's it.
So I encourage you, if there's anybody here that's not registered, I got some forms and see me as soon as we dismiss. If you are registered, make sure you go vote on April 29th. And if you have friends or family, check to make sure you're still in good standing and haven't been taken off the road. And especially our college students. So often, I work the polls, and we have college students that come and think because they're registered in California, they can go to any poll and vote. So let's educate our people so that when we turn out, we can be heard. And I'm gonna close with a couple of quotes. I gave some last week, and I've got a few more. Talk is cheap. Voting is free. Take it to the polls. We do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who vote. Someone struggle. My folks struggle for your vote, so use it. So as that, I will shut up because my pastor told me to sit down. I'm like one of those Baptist preachers. I don't know when to shut up. But I have enjoyed moderating, and I appreciate it. And I'm sorry, I will give one more announcement, and I will announce 5 loaves, 2 fish, a food truck ministry. Free hot meal Friday, March 31st, 4:30 to 6 p.m. until food is gone. Served at Greenwood Recreation Center on East End of the building. Menu, chicken spaghetti, green beans, roll, dessert, and bottled water. This is by Food Truck Ministry, and the food will be free. If there's nothing else, and we'd like to thank our media for coming to support us.
Thank you, Rick Godley.
My pastor has something to say before we dismiss.
First of all, we want to thank all of you for coming out. But I just want to leave something, give you something to think about on our way out the door. I grew up in Chicago. I was born down here, but I grew up in Chicago. And the schools that I went to in Chicago were predominantly black. Predominantly black elementary school, predominantly black high school. I came down here to go to Grambling State University and got my degree in education. I taught in Monroe for 32 years at Neville High School. And since I've been in Louisiana, I've been just blown away at the fact at how the school systems are run in Louisiana. even though integration, desegregation happened years ago, many school districts are working overtime to maintain the status quo. And some of the schools that have been integrated, there are more black kids than there are white kids that go there. But they still run the school like it's a predominantly white. Even the school where I taught it. It makes no sense to have a dance line with 20 girls on it and only 2 of them are black. That makes no sense. If your school is integrated, any organization ought to reflect the color spectrum at your school.
Amen.
It makes no sense that we're still operating our school system in Louisiana like they're still back in the 1950s and 1960s. So we've got a reason to show up at the school board meeting April the 4th. And we've got a reason to go out and vote on April the 29th.
Right.
Because we have a real problem with education in the state of Louisiana.
Amen. Amen.
We really do.
I'll say one thing. So since I'm a Baptist preacher, I have not said anything but a prayer tonight, so if I could just say this one thing that I wanted to say last week at my place.
And then you close it out with prayer.
I close it out with prayer. I used to pastor in this city. 10, 11 years. I served on the planning and zoning. I was helping with the Habitat for Humanity. I led the marches, the first marches here from Martin Luther King. Okay. My concern is twofold. Number one, pastoral presence and parent participation. I think it is important and imperative. I'm glad this brother here tonight. You're a preacher, aren't you? You're a pastor, okay. I thought I remember him. Most of the ones that are here tonight don't even have children in the system.
Amen.
But we're here.
Amen.
And so, that's going to have to be an accountability, whatever it's going to take. And as for the pastor's concerned, because every pastor got children, he's pastoring who's going to be affected by that.
That's right.
That was a time, and Bill know what I'm talking about, that Nicodemus Club.
Yes, sir.
When all the pastors got together,
Yeah.
and when Sunday morning came, we all said the same thing from our pulpits. As a unit, a sign of unity, whatever that issue was.
That's right.
And I'm hoping that you who are here tonight could check and see the parents who are not present, and your pastor, if he's not here, you can tell him I said it. They need to be here, and the parents need to be here, and they need to be here to help us help them.
Yeah.
And myself, I'm the pastor of this church right here. I'm here because anything that affects my community also affects me as a pastor.
That's right.
There's no way as a pastor that I can just sit back and not watch my community suffer and I not participate, roll up my sleeves and get dirty with it.
Well said.
I want the pastors who are present tonight, will you please stand?
Yeah.
Pastor, will you please stand? Just tell us your name and where you're from, where you pastor. We'll start in the back.
Pastor David Wilson, I pastor at Sweet Union Missionary Baptist Church in
Spearfield.
I'm also a teacher there at Crawford Elementary School, so I came to just listen. Lastly, I want to say, probably about 15 years ago, Judge Black wrote a decree, and he stated that he wanted the African American kids and the Caucasian kids to learn together, to socialize, and to get educated together. And he made it K through 2 in Hillcrest, 3 through 5 at Ruston Elementary School. He did that because he saw that they would get better resources, better books, and they would study harder. And if you take the Caucasian teachers and African American teachers that really have a heart for teaching, those kids will be phenomenal. But we going back.
That's right.
And I don't know why anybody's surprised. This happens all the time.
That's right. It's true.
And only prayer is going to be able to stop what's taking place. So,
Mike Arthur Simmons, pastor of Hebrew Baptist Church, Arcadia, live in Grambling.
Yes,
Pastor Dredd, Fellowship Baptist Church, Central.
Okay.
Pastor Tyrone Harris, pleasure to see me. I live in Ruston.
You're the one said you hadn't preached in front of a crowd that big before.
Father God, how we thank you again for your presence, and we are here tonight to follow your instructions.
Yes.
that is not about race, but about our children.
Amen.
Teach us, oh Lord, to stay on track with what it is that we're supposed to be dealing with. And teach us, oh Lord, and remind us the power in the ballot box, that we'll be able to exercise that God-given right that so many have died for. We thank you for everyone who's here tonight. We thank that you brought them safe, and we ask now that you grant each of them traveling grace and safe passage. As our servant prayer in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes. That's been a precious one. No problem.